Let's take a look at another example, a little more complex one. So write this one down. To avoid sleeping during Marcia's gripping lecture on infinitives, Elizabeth asked Luke to jab her with his mechanical pencil periodically in her ear canal. So when I read this one, I realize that there are actually two infinitives. Make sure I have what's going on here. All right, so there are two infinitives in this one. Sorry about that. We'll change up the mouse to a pen. And so I can see that I have this to avoid sleeping, which is an infinitive. I also have to jab. Well, how do I know which one's adverbial and which one's nominal? Well, one thing I can try is this little trick with in order to. I can take the word to and change it to in order to. And if I can change it to in order to, it means it's adverbial. So watch this. What if I said, in order to avoid sleeping during Marcia's gripping lecture on infinitives, Elizabeth asked Luke to jab her with his mechanical pencil periodically in her ear canal. Fantastic. That still makes sense. That means this guy has to be an adverb. But I can't do that with this bottom one. This bottom one, I couldn't say, Elizabeth asked Luke in order to jab her with his mechanical pencil. It doesn't make as much sense. So that's how I know this top guy, he's an adverb. And this bottom guy, he's a noun. And that's going to be really important because they're going to be punctuated differently. They're also going to be diagrammed differently to show us that they need to be punctuated differently. Let's change our screens and let's practice diagramming this one together. No, but I do want to go here. So I have this base sentence which says Elizabeth asked Luke, but I also know ahead of time, I'm going to change this to a white, I can also tell that Luke is actually traveling with to jab because Luke's the one who's jabbing her. So therefore, Luke must be working with this word jab. So let me build this base sentence for us, and then we'll continue on from there. So here's Elizabeth. That's my subject. And then I'd say Elizabeth asked. And once again, she's asking Luke to jab her. So I can see that Luke is traveling with this infinitive. So I'm going to make a really long line for the word jab. You just trust me because I've dealt with this before and made this mistake. That's the really lousy drawing. So here's Luke. Luke is my subject of my infinitive to jab. We know that sometimes the subject of the infinitive will have the word for with it. I could say for Luke to jab. I just didn't put it in with this sentence, but I could have, and that would be sitting right here. And that's something we did in our last unit. We would have for Luke to jab. So now I can continue on. I'm going to put the word her way out here just because I know I'm going to need a little bit of room underneath this verb. And so I say, okay, he's jabbing how? With pencil, his pencil, mechanical pencil. Let's add those in. If I can spell things correctly. With pencil, his pencil, mechanical pencil. And then I have him jabbing how periodically. And he's also jabbing where? In canal, her canal, ear canal. So now when I build my adverbial infinitive, and I'll change colors for him, my adverbial infinitive says, in order to avoid sleeping during Marcia's gripping lecture on infinitives. Well, this tells me why. Why is he jabbing her in the pen with this pencil? Well, because she wants to avoid sleeping. So when I see this in order to avoid, or even if I just simply did the original one, which was just simply to avoid, it has to touch a verb. But now I have two verbs. I have asked, and I have jab. But think about it logically. The infinitive has to agree with the subject. That's why I have Luke here. Luke is the subject of jab. If I tried putting to avoid underneath jab, I know it might sound like it makes sense because Luke is jabbing her. Why? To avoid falling asleep in my class or during this lecture. But that would make Luke the one who's avoiding falling asleep. I wanted to draw underneath the word asked because I want Elizabeth to be the subject of this infinitive. So I'm going to put it here, and I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to do the in order to. If I have in order to, just treat it as all one big word. This is going to be a hot mess. Well, we'll do our best we can. In order to what? Avoid. There's my infinitive, in order to avoid. And once again, if it was just to avoid, you just write to avoid. If I have in order to, just treat it as all one big word. In order to avoid, I'm avoiding what? Sleeping. I know I could step this, but I'm going to put my gerund up on a tree only for the cheesy reason that I need to have some height in my diagramming because I need some white space. And I know that I would run out if I was down here. So you don't have to put it on a tree, but if you want to, get crazy. Why not? So here's sleeping. And then I can continue on. Sleeping when? During class. Let's do that. See how that worked out when I put that up on a tree? I got myself some landscape here. So during lecture, Jeffrey. Read your own sentence correctly. During lecture. And then it's Marcia's lecture. It's a gripping lecture. And I know it ends in ing, but that's just looked at as being a regular old adjective. Eventually, we'll do something different with him. But for now, we'll just leave him as it is. It's a gripping. It's like saying it's a interesting, it's cool lecture. Not that any of these lectures are cool. And then on infinitives. Here's on, and then here's infinitives. Our takeaway is the fact that like the infinitive has to connect back to its correct subject. And so Elizabeth is the one who's asking. Elizabeth is the one who is avoiding sleeping. This infinitive has to work with Elizabeth. This gerund has to work with Elizabeth. But Luke is the one who's controlling the jabbing, and so he's the subject of that infinitive. It gets kind of complicated, but the diagram demonstrates if we have written something correctly or if we have not written it correctly. And once I recognize that this one's adverbial and this one's nominal, that tells me why there's no comma here, but it's ultimately going to help me figure out why there's a comma here, depending on which one it is. Fantastic work. What I'd like for you to do is try practicing these now.